Welcome to the Money GPS. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today, we are going to look at what will affect every single person, no matter where you are. There are many individuals today that are getting prepared, that are getting organized, and then there's the vast majority. I hope that you're a part of the minority in this case here. The first thing we need to talk about is the commodity block. What's been happening, what could happen. I'll show you that first in relation to what's going on with Russia in general. The second thing, debt-flation all over the place. We are watching debt rising on a personal level, on a national level, on a corporate level, but we're also seeing the same factors happening along with inflation driving everything up, making that more difficult. The third thing is the economic oddities. I'm going to show you what's happening with the 1% and everybody else. A lot to cover. Let's begin. Here we have it. Now, I'm going to butcher his name, but Medvedev is saying this on Telegram, on his Telegram. This is not some random official saying this could happen and so on. These are quotes. This is translated. If you go to this article, which is located in the sources, you can click on the Telegram and see the actual Russian post for yourself. It so happened that the food security of many countries depends on our supplies. It turns out that our food is our quiet weapon. Quiet, but ominous. Quote, the priority in food supplies is our domestic market and price control. We will supply food and crops only to our friends. Fortunately, we have a lot of them, and they are not at all in Europe and not in North America. We will sell both for rubles and their national currency in agreed proportions. Okay, so there's like 10 things in here. I just want to read the whole thing, but I can't. There's so much. Quiet weapon. We've heard of food as a weapon before. We know this. A little bit different, but the same thing applies. That when they need to, when a country needs to, that they can turn things around very rapidly. You also have here saying, we don't like what Europe is doing. We don't like what North America is doing. We are going to deal with our friends, and we're going to pay in either rubles or we're going to pay in that person's or that country's currency. We don't want the dollars. And why? Because they're sanctioned. They're being sanctioned on those platforms. They're saying, forget it. We don't want that. This is huge. We will not supply our products and agricultural products to our enemies. Quote, enemies. And we won't buy anything from them. Although we haven't bought anything since 2014, but the list of products prohibited for import can be further expanded. I mean, this is massive. It is so telling, and it shows us what could be happening in the coming days, weeks, months, and beyond. I hope you understand how serious this is. Let's get into the next aspect here. Saudi Arabia hikes oil prices further into record territory. It's a massive increase, according to UBS. Prices are clearly off the charts. What has Saudi Arabia been doing? Well, some suggest that they are going to China and saying, look, if we're going to supply you with oil, we'll do it in your currency. At least this is the rumor. So one after the other, suggesting maybe we don't have to use the US dollar in all transactions. This is big. Chinese buyers given flexibility to pay in yuan for Russian oil. Paramount offers ESPO crude for May on yuan basis. Traders face financing hurdles as banks shun Russian businesses. So there's a lot happening here. Think about this. If you think of the SWIFT system, like the roads and the highways of the financial system, and suddenly, you got a big checkpoint along the way, and you say, no, you can't go along here, Russia. You can't go along here, China, or this country or that country. Well, what do? Well, if another route is available, well, then they'll go that way. It's just the way it works. It's not as if they say, well, we can't use the SWIFT system, so we're just gonna just give in to all your demands. That's clearly not what they're doing, and most countries wouldn't do that. And so today we see the effects of it directly. Unbelievable. I am very interested to see if we go into a much, we already are, but into a much more multipolar world where no longer is there one very dominant country, but we start to see these big factions forming. Treasury stops Russia from paying debt through its US accounts. So, yet another level of the squeeze that's been going on right now. Move intended to force Russia toward three unappealing options. Russia can still receive payments for oil and gas as an exemption. So they basically say, look, these are the three unappealing options: draining their dollar reserves held in its own country, spending new revenue, or going into default. Those are the three options. We will see what happens. Russia seems to be doing okay as we see it. Their currency has been pushed back upward, perhaps with a little bit of help. But we don't know what's going to happen for the coming months and years and so on. Europe is saying we're going to do away with Russian oil and natural gas. But we know that they can't do that overnight. It would take a long time, how much Russia exports. So let's take a look. I want to show you here what's been happening. On an individual level, debt has increased considerably. Excuse me. With inflation not letting up, shoppers cut back on staples. You never want to read this. Never. If they cut back on the latest iPhone, that's one thing. But staples, that's not good. Consumers are buying detergent, diapers in smaller quantities and switching to store brands. It doesn't smell as nice. That's just something that, quite frankly, shows us where we are in the current cycle. Okay? Excuse me. Cheers. Directly connects in with this one. The world is piling on debt as it battles inflation. Government handouts can help keep fuel and food prices protests in check, but may be too much to bear financially. For the fragile countries we watch all around the world, especially those countries that don't really have a strong middle class, as soon as food prices go up, riots on the streets. But it happens to be an issue now for all over the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, where a large group of people, maybe not, 90% of the people, but certainly a large group of people are being affected by simple price increases on staples. This is just showing us France's day-ahead electricity price in euros per megawatt hour. And I mean, my goodness, to say the least, if anybody is in France and can shed any light on this, please do. You do see these fluctuations happen. My hope here is that this doesn't continue. This has been a trend, by the way, of increasing prices. We do see that. So even if you were to make it not necessarily where it is right now on this specific day, the trend has clearly been much higher. Big Canadian banks unanimously expect a 50-point hike next week. We will see what happens, of course. I want to bring this to you simply as a foreshadowing for what we could see in the United States. 50 basis points would put the Bank of Canada at 1%. So, although 1% still very low, it's a big jump from where we thought we'd be 6 months ago, right? So we'll see what goes on. And now for some interesting info. Okay, 3 pieces of info that everybody should be aware of. Number one, I've been talking about what's happening with Shanghai. Look at this. 2022. Ships waiting to load or discharge at Shanghai. Look, this red line, extreme to say the least. Why? Because the ports. Now, I've been just talking about the lockdowns and so on. I mean, just compare. You're seeing the average of 2017 to 2021. Okay? That's the black line. Okay, because 2021 crazy, right? But if we just take an average over several years, it smooths that out. It's nowhere near it. This is a problem. This is a big problem. If you're trying to get stuff out of this port because you are Walmart, because you are Costco, because whatever it's coming from, suddenly you've got yet another delay. That means more price increases. That means more extremes, to say the least. And that means, people that don't have enough money to spend at local businesses because of something else being much more expensive. I thought this was funny. Um, Oil market, we are still heading to $12 a barrel, I'm told. So there's a question. He poses the question here for Kathy Wood. If you could ask Wood one question, what would it be? Still thinking oil prices will go down to $12 a barrel? And then Kathy Wood replies, this supply and price shock is destroying demand and accelerating the shift to electric transportation. So yes. So while he posted this 10 hours, let me just confirm that as I do this. I mean, it looks like this is right now. Okay, so it's hard to confirm. I'm not a Twitter expert, but that looks like this is now. And she's still going with the $12. Like maybe like way down the road, it can go down. The price can go down, certainly. Right now, as I record this, it is about $105 a barrel. 100 below 100. So, I mean, certainly, sure. $12 a barrel, you need some serious demand destruction. Plus many other things piling up on top of that. It happened before. Okay. But because of electric vehicles, it's going to go down to $12. I mean, that's not even factoring in how many other things utilize petroleum products. Anyway, whatever. Wealth Effect Monitor, and actually, if you have some time, check this out from Wolf Street. Wealth Effect Monitor in the Fed's money printing era, household wealth, top 1%. I like how he break down the top 1% and then the 2 to 10%. Because sometimes you see top 1%, then top 10%. Well, that factors in the 1%, so it's always skewed. Look at that. I mean, look at the difference between the top 1% and then the next group down below, 2 to 10%. So significant. And then the bottom 50% is like right at the right at the bottom, doesn't even exist. I mean, just unbelievable. I'm amazed every time I see this. Bottom 50%, obviously, but even the next 40%. Okay, so the bottom 90%, their wealth, if you want to call it that, is so insignificant. So if you're in that 89%, okay, you're like right up there almost, you're not even significant in terms of the wealth, of the total. Like it's so crazy. This is not even Elon Musk and Bezos and all that. It's like another group below that, way below that. And yet, still so extreme the disparity. And what does this mean for people? It means that we need to get ready and prepared and do the things that we can do today. That means cutting back where we don't need to be spending. That means doing simple things like having some food supplies around, beans and rice and pasta and so on. That means with our portfolio or our retirement account to make smart decisions and decide where should we keep our money considering what we believe to happen in the following 6 months, a year. Is it wise to do those things? I believe so. And that's all for this video. If you appreciate the information, hit that thumbs up button. It's right down there below. Don't delay. Do that on the way out. It would really help this channel out. Less than 10% of people actually do so. I do want to thank you for that. And that's all. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.